Looks like Candace Owens won Anti-Semite of the Year by Stop Antisemitism. Let's see her response.
I am the Anti-Semite of the Year. Yes, apparently Jewish people everywhere are terrified when they wake up and they envision who to be terrified about. It's little old me.
Well, Candace, nobody said they were scared of you. Nobody asked the Jews, who are you scared of the most? However, in her snarky little comment, she accidentally admits that harmful rhetoric can lead to hate crimes against individuals. Otherwise, the notion of people being afraid wouldn't have crossed her mind, making her statement a confession and also an inappropriate trivialization of something very serious. But let's see what else she has to say.
All right, where do we begin? I think we just have to jump right into this amazing New York Post article. And it's amazing because of not just how they announced it, but the quote that they were able to get from Stop Antisemitism's founder.
Candace goes on to read the quote by Stop Antisemitism. She seems to laugh her way through it as though it's not serious or true or of a concern to her at all. The quote says, Candace Owens, witch's brew of anti-Semitism, drew from vile medieval blood libels, including claims that Jews drink Christian blood, conspiracy theories that Jews are pedophiles who control the media and are taking over America, and modern toxic anti-Israel hysteria. It concludes by saying there is no psychotic rabbit hole too extreme for this poisonous hater. So her response is to exhibit a behavior that makes it appear as though this is all fake and false and phony. But if you notice, she never actually says, this isn't true. I don't think this way. I don't believe in these things. She never denies the claims. Instead, here's what she does.
When publications decide to publish quotations like that, are they really in that much of a vacuum? Is this just like a feedback loop amongst people that are like Likud Party journalists, where they don't realize how completely warped and deranged they sound to even put these things on paper? Like, no one believes this. Obviously, nobody.
Right there, here's what she's done. Trivialize, dismiss, and then convince you that you're the minority opinion if you actually believe this, because nobody believes it, right? Except for the fact that entire countries believe it because they actually barred her from entering. That was Australia and New Zealand. Now, New Zealand has recently retracted that ban based on free speech, but not because they deny the fact that she's an anti-Semite. They basically said she's allowed to be one, but they didn't reverse the ban because she isn't one. They never said that. But let's see why she says nobody believes this.
But there has been some mixed reactions. So I'm going to read some of these mixed reactions on Instagram. This user wrote, "This is how you try and destroy someone through insidious rumors, and then later God finds a way to vindicate the flock of pariahs." Honestly, I'm not a fan of hers, but come on.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that coming.
This is what she comes out of the gate with? With the 34 likes?
Not going well, I would say, for like the pro-Israel lobby. People are not falling for this sort of a thing. But it's interesting to see that they have not stopped the onslaught of slander and libel this entire year, when any person just wants them to practically debate why it is that America should be married to the foreign policy aims of Bibi Netanyahu and the Likud Party. It makes entirely no sense.
Candace Owens is redirecting the focus on a huge debate on whether criticism against Israel is anti-Semitic or not. And the answer is rather simple. If the criticism against the only Jewish state in the world is based on a lie, then it's anti-Semitic. But what if somebody's just ignorant of the facts? That's a common counterpoint that I hear. And my response to that is this. There is only one Jewish state in the entire world. If you choose to believe all of the harmful comments about them and don't take the time to look up the facts, it's because you don't want to. It's really just that simple, because if you have time to read the propaganda, then you have time to look up the counterclaims.
All jokes aside, though, you guys, obviously, we know the anti-Semitism, that the charge no longer has any real meaning. We know the anti-Semitism no longer has any real meaning, because if it did have any real meaning, the person who would have won for Anti-Semite of the Year would have been Bibi Netanyahu himself. Obviously, there has been no individual that has murdered and killed and maimed more actual Semites than Bibi Netanyahu has done this year.
Oh my goodness. If it isn't Little Miss Attitude.
Now you all are going to want to sit down for this next part, because I'm about to take the gloves off. Watch what Candace Owens says right here.
And maimed more actual Semites than actual Semites than.
Candace Owens tries to demolish any notion that the word anti-Semitism is exclusively referring to horrific prejudice towards the Jewish people. She falsely accuses Benjamin Netanyahu of murdering, killing, and maiming more quote-unquote actual Semites. What she is implying with this statement is two things. Number one, she's launching what we call an etymological fallacy, which is when someone asserts that a word's original meaning is the same as its current meaning. The definition of Semitic is a linguistic description for those who speak Hebrew, Arabic, and Aramaic. It can also refer to ethnicity. However, the term anti-Semitic became firmly and exclusively attached to the Jewish people after the pogroms and Holocaust in the 19th century. Additionally, since Arab countries surrounding Israel, as a majority, including the colonial invention of Palestine and the psychotic Islamic clerics that have taken over Iran, actively participate in attempted genocide of the specific Semitic ethnicity of Jews, which is distinctly separate from themselves, it's no longer appropriate to reduce Semitic to its linguistic terminology. And it becomes entirely obvious as to why anti-Semitism exclusively refers to Jew hatred. Now, some would accuse Jews of having a victim complex because they understand the importance of having a word that identifies the harm wielded against them. Because if you remove a way to communicate dangerous rhetoric, you've essentially tried to disarm the Jewish people. Number two, her venomous quick whip she spits out when she says, quote unquote, actual Semites, clearly implies she thinks the Jews today are imposters and not even ethnically Semitic. Her fangirl Kool-Aid has intoxicated her mind, and it shows. But it doesn't surprise me she doesn't have the slightest clue on what anti-Semitism is, because look what she does when someone tries to explain it to her.
2,000 years ago, Jews don't accept Jesus as Messiah.
4 hours later.
In 1144,
That was all her editing, not mine. So yeah, she fast forwards through someone trying to explain anti-Semitism to her. But we're the crazy ones according to her, right? For accusing her of anti-Semitism? Now, this next clip I'm going to show you is absolutely brilliant. It proves that Candace Owens is just some sort of little girl who's educating herself on Wikipedia articles and conspiracy theories. Watch this.
And I grew up, at my grandparents' house. My grandfather grew up in a segregated South. And so when I'm walking through Jerusalem and you see, and they say these are the Muslim quarters, this is where the Muslims are allowed to live, that doesn't feel like a bastion of freedom to me. So I guess.
Oh, I don't think it's where they're allowed to live in Jerusalem. I think it's that there's an Armenian quarter. It's not saying the Armenians can only live here. It's that there are communities, just like there's a Jewish community in Jersey here, and there's a Muslim community in here.
Now, notice the little grimace on her face. She thinks she's got him, but just wait.
To my understanding, it's not restrictions within Israel proper of where Israeli.
I think it is where they have. I mean, at least that's what the rabbi who was taking me around. He said these are the Muslim quarters, so this is where the Muslims
live. But he didn't say anything about legally saying they cannot live in other places within Israel proper. I mean, there's Israeli Arab citizens that have full rights.
Now look at her expression when she realizes, he has a point. Just look at the comparison. The face she gives when she thinks she's got him versus the face she gives when she's debunked in less than a minute. But it doesn't stop her from trying to dig her heels into the ground into her preconceived notions.
Israeli Arabs
I'm only talking about Jerusalem, so I haven't been to Tel Aviv or anything like that. I'm just talking about particularly.
Jerusalem itself as a city has a division in it where the Green Line divides, and there's East Jerusalem. That's maybe what he was talking about, not the Muslim quarter, but East Jerusalem. There's disputed territory within the West Bank and East Jerusalem that divides, and therefore they're under Palestinian authority or even other jurisdiction. But that's a different conversation as far as what those are. But
now this is just one of many clips where it's obvious she has no idea what she's talking about. She implies that there's some sort of personhood in a selected living community. A community people have chosen to live in. They aren't forced to live in it, and she doesn't understand the difference between that and a territory dispute. She is an uneducated fool using her platform to spread misinformation. But other than her blatant ignorance about what's happening in Israel, has she said anything else that's wild and outlandish? Let's take a look.
As a Kabbalist, and they believe in bisexuality. They worship Baphomet. They are trying to use psychology to introduce, and I read this in a book by a Jewish historian, David Bacon, to make their religion the religion of the world, right? More explosives dropped, tons of explosives dropped on Gaza than were dropped in Hiroshima. Completely ridiculous to say, oh, well, this is happening because of Hamas. It's completely ridiculous to say, this is happening because of Hamas. Let's be. Completely ridiculous to say, oh, well, this is happening because of Hamas. Let's be.